My mother had me with a donor. He was someone she knew who was willing to let her have a child to raise herself. When I was 12, Mom met her husband. Her husband had a 17-year-old daughter at the time. Her husband and his daughter were idiots, and Mom threw me in the deep end, and she thought I'd see this dude as my dad because I'd never had one before. Even at 12, I realized that a guy who commented on how I didn't smile as a girl should, and who commented on my weird interest for a girl, was never going to be worthy of being called my parent, let alone my dad. His daughter taunted me for having no dad and for not being cute enough when my donor didn't fall in love with me and decided not to be my dad. I asked if she understood what a donor was. She told me someone who makes freaks. When I was 16, the daughter moved back in with her boyfriend and their kids. I was then forced to babysit after school and sometimes on the weekends because they either couldn't be bothered or nobody wanted to pay. I did the bare minimum of babysitting, and I didn't grow attached to those children in the 2-ish years I babysat them. I wanted nothing to do with babysitting them, but I figured I could at least game when home with them rather than being grounded. I moved out and cut my mom off because she chose a husband who was an idiot to me and kept me around him and his daughter, who was also an idiot to me. I have nothing to do with any of them. A few months ago, my bio dad died, and I learned he left all of his assets to me. It was a lot of money in a house that I sold, which got me a lot of money. My mom learned about this via mutual friends. She reached out and told me how much they've struggled financially since their house burned down 2 years ago. I had heard about that at the time, and how her step-grandkids are looking at a really bad Christmas, and how great it would be if I, as their aunt, her daughter, and part of the family, bought gifts for the kids. I told her she and her step-grandkids are not my family and were not owed any money from me, and that I'd like it if she did not make me change to another number. She called me on a business number I have. She asked me how I could be so cold, and even if I resent her, how could I say that about my niece and nephew that I spent every day with for 2 years and who looked up to and adored me? Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Give them money? Mom, I've been on my own support network for years and years. What happens to me when I have needs? None of you ever take care of me, so there's no point in me thinking I'll be able to rely on you for support. Better to keep my money for me because I've never been able to count on you guys. My nest eggs stay in my nest. It should have been colder. Oh, you want money? Then when you pay me in full for those 2 years of forced babysitting, I'll consider giving half of it back to you. You are more than right to stay no contact with them. Try blocking her number on your business phone, as it sucks to change those. Move on and enjoy your inheritance yourself. You were clear that your stepfamily hurt you psychologically and that your biological mother never protected or supported you. So I can see why you'd feel absolutely zero connections and even less responsibility for them. On another note, I hope your bio dad left a note to help you understand why he didn't so much as ever reach out to you. Honestly, it feels more like Mom is mad that all his money went to OP instead of her and is now trying to weasel in on it. Now I wonder if the donor had wanted to be in your life at least a little and Mom refused. We'll never know, but it's quite odd for someone who genuinely felt no attachment to you to leave such a substantial inheritance. I'm sorry your childhood ended up as it did. Enjoy your inheritance. My sister married my best friend, Jamie, and they had a daughter together, Rosie. Rosie was 5 when Jamie died. He was diagnosed with a heart condition months before and was in a bad way by the time the diagnosis came. So he knew his death was coming, but he had hoped he could get a transplant in time. Jamie had no family. He was a foster kid as long as I knew him, but we became brothers through our friendship. I was closer to him than my biological brothers. When he knew no heart was coming to save him, he asked me to look out for Rosie and to be there for her in his place. He knew I adored Rosie, and he knew I would talk to Rosie about him and help her keep his memory alive. So I did. We're still close to this day. She adores my husband and me as much as we adore her. So she asked me to act as the father of the bride at her wedding. She said it would be the closest thing to having her dad there. She plans to pin a photo of him to the flowers she carries down the aisle. Where the problem comes in is her stepdad. He's been in her life since she was 6. My sister met him 10 months after Jamie died, started dating him after 6 months of knowing him, and introduced them immediately. He and my sister are not very happy that she asked me, her uncle, over her other dad, and they're unhappy with me. They say I prevented Rosie from having another dad, and that my presence with Rosie and allowing her to talk so much about her dad left no room for Jamie to fill the father role, that he has been in her life for 18 years now, and it's still not enough for him to be the father of the bride. Rosie apologized to me for getting into trouble over this. She told me she couldn't think of a living person she would rather have over me, and that this is what she wants, because her stepdad is not her dad. I told her as long as she's happy with her decision, it changes nothing for me. But her stepdad will not let up, and he told me I should be encouraging her to ask him, and that I'm disrespecting him and all he did for her. That he was there longer than Jamie, and the fact that he still takes priority over him to her, even in this, and that I'm going along with it makes him angry. He called me an idiot and said I denied Rosie another father. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Her wedding, her choice. She already has a father. Her stepfather isn't her father. You have been there her whole life, and obviously you have played a very important role in her life. So walk her down the aisle with pride, and know her father, your best friend, is looking down and smiling, and take pride in the fact that you have and are living up to the promise that you made to him. If Rosie is old enough to get married, she's old enough to make her own decisions. Please don't let their self-pity stop you from doing this. It's really awful your sister and brother-in-law still want to erase your niece's dad's memory. It's her choice. She's an adult, and she doesn't consider her stepdad as her second dad. She said she considers you walking her down the aisle represents her dad being there, and it's obvious why you kept his memory alive. So please don't let her down. Let her dad be present at her wedding. A lot of these stories that talk about step-parents lamenting their relationship with their stepchildren seem to be so centered on how the step-parent views what the relationship should be. To me, it seems like the very first hurdle they need to overcome is that a birth parent should place the kid's needs above their own. When I, 30 female, married my hubby, 45, my stepson, and at the time, his fiancée, both were early 20s, started passing out their baby shower invites while my hubby and I were cutting our cake. I do want to point out that my hubby and I did not receive an invite. I also want to point out that my hubby is my stepson's father. In hindsight, I should have said something right then and there, but I was feeling selfish at the moment because I didn't want to draw attention to her on what was supposed to be a special day. A few days later, they came to our house to discuss having their wedding reception in our garage, and it was then that I brought up how I felt. I explained how their actions were disrespectful and tasteless, and that they not only made me feel uncomfortable, but also my guest. The issue was not everyone that attended the reception was invited to her baby shower. I further explained that we, the bride and groom, weren't even invited, and that they should have just mailed her invites or asked us if it was okay to hand them out. My daughter-in-law told me it wasn't a real wedding. Since this was just the reception, and some of the guests in attendance were invited to her baby shower, she would save on postage since they were planning their own wedding. It's not that big of a deal because her family always does this type of thing. Her mom told her it wouldn't be rude. If I was really that upset, I should have said something that day. What do you mean you didn't get an invite? We handed it to you just as you were cutting the cake. Here, take this one. Then proceeds to hand me an invite. Now, I would remember if I got an invite while cutting my darn cake. I just took the card and went inside. I let my hubby talk to them the rest of the time. We did not attend the baby shower. Because of this incident, a rift was created in the family. I just want to know if I'm an idiot. Clarification. The baby shower was in August, I believe, so they could have passed out their invites during their own wedding reception instead of during mine. I was married in June. They were married in July, the beginning part, and the baby shower was in August. Not the idiot. Tacky to announce pregnancy at a wedding and just as tacky to hand out invites to another event, even more so when not everyone was invited. Didn't we all learn not to hand out invitations in public in grade school if everyone wasn't invited? They would have mentioned it if they didn't know it was wrong. Not saying anything on the day was fair. They didn't deserve any special attention, and I guess daughter-in-law would then sadly and loudly play the victim for how you were jealous and spiteful and mean. Not only was what they did rude and classless, she then doubled down on it, saying that it wasn't a real wedding and that her mom approved. And she claims that she did it to save postage. Do you know what doesn't use postage or upset wedding guests and participants? Evites. It really would not have mattered what the occasion was. You don't use someone else's party to highlight your own, and you do not invite people to an event in front of others who are not included. There's no shame in being on opposite sides of a family this classless. However, your husband should probably tell his son that unless he adheres to some basic etiquette, they can expect a future with a lot of hurt feelings. Yesterday was my birthday, and my best friends planned a party for me. All I knew was we were meeting at our local dive bar, and I ended up being about 1.5 hours late. I was finally on my way and got this text. "We love you, but we really don't like you right now, and it's going to be a long time before we want to see you. We put a lot of effort into this, and you showed us you don't give a single darn about our time, effort, and our shared story. Rob has the cake at least baked for you behind the bar if you care enough to stop and get it. But we're leaving and we're very upset with you. Please give us some space for a while." I tried to call the girl that sent the text, and I assumed she blocked me. I called another friend, and while she talked, she was very rude and said all of our friend group is really tired of me being late all the time, and being late to my own birthday party is a level of rudeness and arrogance that they aren't willing to put up with anymore. I said this sounded like they were breaking up with me, and she said that that would be a good analogy and to please give her some space. To say I'm brokenhearted is an understatement. We've been best friends since freshman year in college, and being late is kind of who I am, and I didn't know it bothered them so much. Am I the idiot for being late to my birthday party? Yesterday was my wedding day. I showed up at the church 2 hours late, and it was all locked up, and no one was there. Now my friends and family are blowing up my phone with angry text, and my fiance says he doesn't want to see me anymore. They should have expected this because I'm always late. It's just the way I am. I didn't know it bothered them so much. You are the idiot. Being late is 10 to 15 minutes because you were stuck in traffic. 1.5 hours is blowing them off. They have every right to be mad at you and to not want to associate with you anymore. 1.5 hours without an explanation is either an emergency came up or I don't give a crap about being there. There was no emergency. Your only explanation for your being late is, LOL, that's part of my identity. There was an event specifically planned for you, to celebrate you, to love on you, and you have absolutely no concern for your friend's time and effort. Being late is not a personality trait, but being rude and showing no concern for other people's time is. I read that part and cringed so hard. Like, why do people think being late is a personality? At your grown age, you should have been able to manage your time better after years of being late. OP sounds very self-centered in her own little world. So have you given any thought to recognizing what they're saying, apologizing, changing your ways? Because you're coming here to say, but was it that bad? Suggests that you're not hearing what they're saying. You want someone to say it wasn't a big deal, meaning that you're still not getting that it was a big deal to them. They're hurt, they're frustrated, and you want to deny that. You only mention how upset you are and not a bit of remorse for upsetting them. Hard lesson to learn on your birthday. But seriously, OP, do some reflection and make some amends. Background. I was an affair baby, though it's complicated. My mom was not married. She was actually divorced from my sister's bio dad, but they were back together and had my sister. Mom treated him like crap. He left her, and then I was born a few months later. When I was 6 months old, my mom got arrested. The man I've known as my dad my whole life, my sister's bio dad, did not want us to grow up apart, so he took me in. My bio is an idiot. He had a son after me and was trying to use him to get to me. Dad tried to help us have contact, but bio was not a good parent, so Dad reported him to CPS. Dad ended up adopting him too, so the three of us were raised together. My sister is the only bio of Dad's, but we didn't care because he treated us all three the same. I'm used to comments about me not being Dad's real daughter, or how he only adopted my brother because he wanted a son, as he had to raise two girls. Where we grew up, people were nosy, gossiped a lot, and were unafraid of being mean. But I've always loved that the people closest to me never saw us as less of a true family and never said those hurtful things. I'm married, and my husband is one of those people who was never awful about it, but his family was confused the first time they met us. We were clearly not a bio family. They expected me to have my husband's dad walk me down the aisle at my wedding and said how sad it is that I never knew my dad, and made many other comments about not having a real parent. My husband and I took a break from them because they wouldn't listen to him and stop saying those things. They apologized, and we had started being around them again when they said our future children would at least have 2 grandparents. My husband said our kids would have 3. They brushed them off, so we were done again. But I was so mad that I leaned in on what they were saying. I pointed out how terrible it is to have a dad who loves his kid regardless of blood, and instead, 2 criminal parents would have been better, parents who would have not been good to their kids. I went into details about just how bad things would have been with bio and how messed up my mom is. I wanted them to feel bad for ever implying the man who saved my brother and me and raised us was less of our parent. And it worked. They were mad though, and said on top of depressing everyone, I was an idiot for trying to make them feel like crap. My husband thought it was amazing because it really stopped them in their tracks. But now it may have gone too far, especially with his apparent family's anger. Am I the idiot? Your real dad, the man who loved and raised you, sounds amazing. He more than makes up for you and your husband's crappy birth parents. Not the idiot for explaining the reality of the situation to your in-laws. Sorry if they don't like having feelings, I guess. It's sad, frustrating, and disrespectful how they kept ignoring and invalidating your and your brother's relationship with your father. It's condescending, too, that they expected your father-in-law to walk you down the aisle when you have a wonderful father, perfectly willing and able to do so. People who cannot process that being a real family isn't about whether you're related by blood or not are incredibly sad people. By the way, your hubby is a keeper. They sound like they're trying to isolate you from your family, especially with that 2 grandparents comment, particularly telling that they don't admit that they were jerks. They just accuse you of making them feel like jerks. It will always be your fault, not theirs, in their eyes. You can also see how the cycle of bad parenting breaks, right? Having had such an amazing dad, OP has grown to be a confident woman, unafraid of speaking up for the people she cares about. She also has found a person who's unafraid to stick up for her. If Freud is right, and we marry or want to marry someone like our dad, OP's dad paved the way for her to find a wholesome man. My 28 female ex-boyfriend, Mark, 30, has a girlfriend, Janet, 32. Janet isn't very family-oriented and hates kids, which is ironic because Mark and I have a daughter, Cora, tween. Recently, a situation arose where Janet tried to push Cora by locking her out of the house at night. We all live around Forest, so anything could have happened to her. Cora called me, and I ended up picking her up and calling Mark because Janet wasn't answering the door. I called Mark and told him what happened, and he told me to at least listen to Janet's side of the story. I told him I didn't care about her side because no behavior could allow an adult to lock a kid out of the house. It's honestly appalling to me. I found out the full story, and my opinion still didn't change. So Cora only wanted to clean up the mess that she made in her room because that's the only place she really is in their house. She refused to clean Janet's mess, and Janet punished her. I talked to my daughter about how she would feel if I were to file for full custody, and she said she didn't care as long as she wasn't around Janet. I told Mark that I was filing for full, and he told his mom, and she started texting me on Facebook, super angry. Apparently, Mark and Janet told a different story than what happened and excluded the locking out of the house part to make me and Cora look bad. I ended up telling Mark's mom, and she apologized. But from what I was told, she told Mark that he was a horrible father and wouldn't talk to him if he decided to continue the relationship between him and Janet. Mark is now saying that I'm a bad person and a bad mom. My sister thinks I went too far and the situation could have been talked about. So am I the idiot for going to file for full custody because of a situation about my ex's girlfriend? So she locked her out because Cora didn't want to clean up after Janet? Wow. Not the idiot, OP. She locked your child out of the house. That is not appropriate at all, but especially not as a punishment. Janet did something that endangered your child, and she knew it was unreasonable, which is why she and Mark are lying to everyone. Good for you for protecting your kid, and your daughter's grandmother is a good one. And if Mark has partial custody and his girlfriend locked his child out of the house and he allowed it, I'd have called CPS and cops on both of them. Then he'd have been criminally charged if anything happened to your child. As someone literally old enough to be your mom, I'm so sorry because that must have been genuinely terrifying for Cora and horrible for you to hear as a mom. You don't need to like Janet or even get along with her or Mark, but you absolutely have a right to know that she's safe when Cora's at their home. Any father who would allow someone to lock their daughter out of the house for any reason isn't a good father. You're right to file for sole custody. This is a safety issue. Good luck with getting full custody, and I hope your daughter never has to see that woman again. Everyone's the idiot here. Neither of you is effectively co-parenting. I want to hear Janet's side too. There are certain situations in which I could see that be the consequence of a kid's actions, although it would have to be a very extreme case. It sounds like you are already predisposed to create trouble rather than co-parent. Maybe you're not over your ex. You may instill in your daughter a sense of entitlement and lack of accountability that will carry over into every other aspect of her life. However, since you didn't offer any clarity on Janet's side, I have to assume she deserves the benefit of the doubt. Update. I just want to set some things straight. I don't have any feelings for Mark at all. We dated and broke up a long time ago. Second, I don't want to make it seem like I'm hiding Janet's side of the story, but there's nothing more to it. Cora only cleaned up the mess she made in the house, and not Janet's mess. Mark refuses to break up with Janet. My lawyer said it would probably take a few weeks to get custody. Mark wants Janet and Cora to do therapy together. I asked Cora if she would be interested in doing that, and she said no. Cora has declined Mark's attempts to get her and Janet to talk. Mark hasn't even tried to see her alone, only trying to get her and Janet. As far as I know, Mark's mom isn't talking to Mark, not by my request. That's honestly all there is for now. My sister-in-law, husband's older sister, and I gave birth to daughters around the same time. My daughter was born in early June. Hers was born in mid-June. Her daughter marks 5 kids for sister-in-law and her husband. Our daughter is mine and my husband's first child. A day after my daughter was born, my husband posted the announcement on his social media. Then sister-in-law commented, asking what her actual name was, though the name was mentioned in the post. He replied for her to reread it, and she would see the name. She didn't reply after that. When she gave birth to her daughter, she made her announcement and went on a slight tangent about naming children and how much pride she and her husband took in giving their children real people names. The other day, we were at my husband's parents' house for a barbecue, and she went all in, saying how our daughter's name is a hippie freak name, and how we passed up the chance to give her a legitimate, actual name. She said we could have clearly used one of her kids' names since we were struggling so badly. For context, our daughter is Aura. Her kids are Edward, Martha, Dorothy, Lawrence, and Susan, her youngest. My husband told her we were pleased with our daughter's name, and we were happy she was happy with the names of her children, and we should all just be happy and move on. She told me that I was setting my daughter up for a hard life and that her name would label her forever. All kinds of stuff. Also went on about how grandma and grandpa's names were so handsome and beautiful and could carry a child throughout their lives. She followed up by accusing me of not caring about my daughter. I told her she could keep her grandma names and I would keep my hippie freak names. And the conversation was over because I didn't care to hear about it anymore. My husband and I left. She followed up with, "How dare I say grandma names like something was wrong with them?" I texted her that the hippie freak was too busy to engage further. I was mad at first, and now I'm questioning my actions. I don't like the name she chose for her kids. They're not to my taste, and maybe my tone did relay that. I don't like how she behaved, but two wrongs, etc. So I need to ask, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. As I was reading, I presumed I would find out you had chosen a terrible name. However, Aura is a lovely name and not particularly out there. Could you imagine an adult picking on a child and telling them their name is a freak name? That's what sister-in-law is doing. So disturbing. She's a busybody, weird, and a complete idiot. She stepped over the line massively. Her names are yawn, boring. They're perfectly reasonable names, but pushing one's opinions onto others is not okay. Your daughter's name is beautiful. It's not too out there. And even if it was, it's your circus, your monkeys, so she can butt out. Oh, and your comments were not wrong. They were appropriately snarky. And can I say, I love that your husband wasn't allowing this BS and has your back. Pat him on the back for me. That's a great husband. Yeah, you were matching her energy. Your daughter's name is beautiful. Stay away from her. You'll be getting judged for everything you do with your daughter. People like her are whiners and complainers who just need to be by themselves. Some people are wackadoo. I am not close with my brother, Matt. Our parents heavily favored him growing up, which caused him to be a selfish adult now. Matt does not talk to us unless he needs something. His wife, Amber, is even worse. I've done my best to be civil with Amber, but she's a nasty person. The first thing she did when we met was insulted my then toddler daughter's hair. Amber behaves this way to every member of the family. The only reason the family speaks to Matt or Amber anymore is that we don't want to deprive the kids of a relationship with their cousins, as they all love each other. We keep things superficial because they know I'll leave with my daughter if Matt or Amber says something rude. My friend texted me asking, "Isn't this your sister-in-law?" and sent me a link to a beautiful child contest on Facebook. Amber's young daughter, Mia, was the winner. Amber photoshopped the picture so much that it barely resembled her daughter. Amber had made Mia's brown eyes blue and her chestnut hair blonde. Amber resculpted Mia's face. She looked like another kid. I looked on Amber's social media and saw she did this with all her photos of her kids, including her infant son, Jacob. Jacob is a cute baby. He has dark eyes, hair, and tan skin like Matt. Amber photoshopped Jacob's eyes a bluish green. She made his skin lighter and his hair auburn. Matt had the same edited photos posted on his social media, so he clearly had no problem with it. I was disgusted that they felt the need to Photoshop pictures of their toddler and baby. The grandparents insisted on taking everyone at the mall for new clothes. After shopping, we got lunch together, while the kids went to play on the mini rides and arcade games. I took a picture of the kids, and Matt and Amber asked me to send it to them. Amber was examining the picture and commented that my daughter Savannah's eyebrows were too bushy, and there was a threading place near my house where I should take her to shape her eyebrows better. In the same sentence, she commented about Savannah's cheeks having too much baby fat, and that I should consider a children's workout class for her. I was furious with Amber, because who the heck does she think she is to insult a kid's appearance? I told her that Savannah is perfect the way she is, and who the heck is she to comment otherwise? Amber got defensive and said how she's just trying to offer helpful criticism because Savannah will have trouble finding a boyfriend if she doesn't learn to maintain herself. I said Savannah would find someone who loves her, not her looks, instead of being so shallow and insecure that she photoshops her kids' pictures online. Amber and Matt looked extremely angry and embarrassed. I told Savannah it was time to go when we left. People say I should have left immediately instead of causing drama and responding to Amber how I did. But nobody insults my child and gets away with it. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Photoshopping your children is literally Kardashian level crazy. Not only is it a vapid, shallow thing to do, but imagine those poor children's self-esteem when they eventually find photos of themselves that mommy photoshopped. Amber was absolutely out of line making comments about your minor child's appearance. Based on what you've said here, Amber sounds like an adult who didn't emotionally mature beyond her teenage years. She clearly holds all her value in how she and those around her look and lacks so much self-esteem that she needs to knock children down a peg to make herself feel better. It's quite sad and pitiful, really. Agree. The child is a tween. A tween. Her biggest concern should be riding her bike and playing with her friends, not maintenance. People like this are disgusting. Amber shouldn't be a mother. I see years of therapy in her children's future. Her daughter will grow up believing her only value is in her looks and whether she can hang on to her man or not. I honestly don't see it worth the effort to keep a relationship with them just because your kids can have a relationship with their cousins. Those kids will have terrible mental health issues if they think beauty's all that matters, like your sister-in-law. They'll become nasty like them too. I can't believe this happened, but here we go. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I refuse to pay my parents back. I started a clothing business after I graduated, and it became successful. I now earn a good amount of money. I visited my parents, male 52, female 51, last week. I didn't visit them for months because I was so busy. They started asking me about my business. After asking me a few questions about it, my mom said that now that I earn a lot of money, they're expecting me to pay back all the cost of raising me, and I owe them some money. I asked them if they were joking because it was so random, and they said no. So I told them that was ridiculous. That's their responsibility. I didn't choose to be conceived and born. I asked them if paying their bills was not enough for them. I pay all the bills in the house, even though I don't live there anymore. They said that that was a different matter, so I left the house. The day after, my dad messaged me, "Don't come back here anymore. You should be grateful that we brought you into this world." I replied, "Thank you, but I'm not obligated to pay you." And then they blocked me. My siblings also told me I should have just paid them back since I earn a lot of money. I didn't reply. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You should stop paying their bills and keep them blocked on your end. Children are not indebted to their parents for raising them. That's a one-way street, as in parents solely paying the cost of raising their children. Any money a child earns is their own. What kind of sick family do you come from, OP? If parents had helped fund your business when you started it, it would seem fair to pay them back that investment now that you can, with a little extra if you wanted to be nice. But paying them for the cost of raising you? Do they think having children is an investment that has to pay off? That your siblings side with the parents is baffling. Did they get bullied into paying, I wonder? Your parents chose to have you. They're responsible for you until you're 18. That's what being a parent is. Time for mom and dad to stand on their own 4 feet. Your parents should be ashamed to be such losers that they demand money from their daughter. Stop paying their bills or giving them any form of money. They're crazy people. Step away and cut contact. Update. I'm the one who suggests paying half their bills, but they keep asking if I could pay for that month, and then they would pay for the next month, and it just went on and on. So I decided just to pay their monthly bills. I started paying their bills 2 years ago. They also did not pay for my college. I got a full scholarship. I didn't borrow any money from them to start my business. I found out that my parents didn't ask my siblings to pay them back. I'm the only one they asked. So I stopped paying their bills since I left the house that day. I will not contact them ever again. I'm wrong for paying their bills before, but I wanted to do something nice for them. Anyway, thank you for the advice, guys. LOL. So, I'm a white woman, 21, who lives in the southern US. I took an interest in foreign languages in high school because it seemed important. I speak Spanish and English fluently, since those two are the most spoken languages in the US, and it seemed important to learn Spanish. I also speak Chinese well, but not as well as a native speaker. Anywho, my brother's been dating this girl, Luisa, for several months. He'd mentioned her family's from Mexico. They moved in together recently and threw a housewarming party. It's worth noting that my brother's best friend is Hispanic, and his family's from Cuba. My brother speaks a bit of Spanish. He can follow conversations decently and knows his fair amount of insults. When I got to the party, I started chatting with my brother's best friend, and we were conversing in Spanish. We've just done it for years. We primarily talk in Spanish because use it or lose it and all that. My brother and his girlfriend came over, and I said, "It's nice to meet you," and I included them in what we were talking about. All of this is in Spanish. His girlfriend is named Luisa, and her family's from Mexico. I had heard her speaking English with a bit of an accent when I came in, so I incorrectly assumed she spoke Spanish. She kind of went off on me about how not everyone speaks Spanish, and that as a white girl, I don't need to be speaking it. My brother later apologized and said it was a sore spot for her. But it's been on my mind. Am I the idiot for assuming she speaks Spanish when she doesn't, and speaking Spanish in front of her? Edit. I did try to apologize for assuming, but she kept yelling at me and then ran off to the other side of the room and went to badmouth me to her friends. There are a lot of white people in Spain. They speak, Spanish. You are not the idiot, OP. Just speak to her in Chinese from now on. As a white girl, I don't need to be speaking it. That is one of the most stupidest things I've ever heard. Yet she should go to Spain, Argentina, Uruguay, etc., and she'll be shocked to see white people, even blondes and blue-eyed, all of them speaking Spanish. And anyway, why couldn't a white non-Spanish person speak Spanish or any other language? That's rude and moronic as heck. Speaking Spanish is a skill. Anyone can learn it when they have the desire to do so. It's not strictly only for Mexicans and non-whites. She's most likely ashamed that she didn't learn to speak it and misplaced that anger on you with cheap shots that a white girl shouldn't be speaking the language. I think this is the core. But empathy goes a long way. When you get a chance to talk to her again, you'll get a chance to explain and maybe make a friend. So just cut her some slack. Your brother loves her, and maybe don't do the whole Spanish thing around her for now.